So did I see you made churros?
Yes, I did make churros.
How'd those come out?
So they were really good. The only, well, I mean, I'm assuming a third degree burn on my wrist just because it's burnt in and it has like a yellow coating now. But what happened was somebody said there is a gluten-free churro place in town, and my wife has celiacs. And I called them up. We were like all ready to go. We were so excited. And then I called them. They're like, no, we don't have anything gluten-free at this place. So I was like, oh no, why don't we try making them? So we got all the ingredients. I just got a regular pot of boiling hot oil and we went to town on it. It's not that hard. It's kind of like just putting pancakes in one of those little tube things and it just
Hmm.
cooks. But
Did
the
they turn
first
out
batch,
white?
well, the first batch was horrible because I had the oil too hot and I didn't know it. I dropped them in, they immediately turned black. So then we had to try again. But no, they were great.
I'll have to have you send me the recipe because I'm gluten free.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I have a ton of anything that you can't have now. Like if you really liked red vines, I have a gluten-free recipe to make your own.
Oh, well, damn.
Gluten-free churros, pies, cakes. I went down a deep dive.
I mean, if you've already tried these recipes, so I don't have to like trial and error them myself.
There's so many bad ones. You're just like, how did somebody put this recipe on the internet?
It's true. I have
Mm,
tried some bad ones.
yes.
It all,
Same.
it's all a matter of flour.
Yes.
Depending on the type of flour, you have to use the right flour for certain things.
Yeah, I just hate how the dough is like super sticky and doesn't like really get doughy like gluten dough, but
Yeah, Chris is
we
all
work.
like, we're talking gluten free now.
No, so I have like I throw those house parties every once in a while, and one of the people that comes regularly is gluten free. What flour have you found is best? Like she didn't complain about what I made, but if you're gonna be a house party at somebody's, or a guest at a house party, you're not
Yeah.
gonna be like, yo, this sucks.
What flour do you use?
That is the worst
Uh,
though, going to a party and not having anything to eat.
I have a really good gluten-free lasagna. I'm Italian from New Jersey. I'm Italian, German, and Polish, so we always made Italian food. And then I married someone who is gluten-free and can't have most Italian food. So I started like gluten-free lasagna and stuff. But Bob's Red Mill has a really good one-to-one flour. Everyone likes King Arthur. And then every now and then I'll just buy like the individual ones, like the potato flour and the coconut flour, and make it work.
You just experiment.
But Red Lobster's cheddar biscuit gluten-free ones
Oh
are
yeah,
really,
those cheddar bay biscuits, they're great.
this is a great start to the interview. Just right into the important things, food and electricity.
Food and electricity.
Yeah, no, because I made during the last house party she attended, I made a gluten-free mac and cheese and a gluten-free corn bake. And the corn bake was the hit of the party
Yep.
somehow. Which it is really hard to find gluten-free corn flour.
Yes.
Really hard.
Yes.
Um,
Someone made that and brought it to our house once, and it was the hit of the party.
But this is how we do it on this podcast. We like to randomly talk about random things beforehand.
Hey, that's totally fine. When I did the TV show I developed, I did obviously do my research on the artists, but most of the interviews were just off the cuff. It wasn't like, hey, where are you from? Tell me this, this, this. It was like whatever random thing came to our mind.
Yeah.
That was
We
great.
try to do that as well. We
Yeah.
try. Well,
Cool.
we should probably get this started then.
Let's do it.
First and foremost, who are you?
My name is Johnny, and I go under the Wildfires Project,
And
solo project with a band name.
yeah. Well, I mean, you eventually have to have people playing with you if you go on
Yes.
tour. So,
Yeah, so it came around the previous band I was in years ago. We had decided we're all good friends. We just kind of decided to disband. It wasn't really where I was emotionally anymore. Wasn't the type of music I wanted to do. I was kind of restricted on some of the stuff I was able to do and the lyrical content. It was like your basic high school pop punk songs about girls, your typical stuff. But I wanted to write more about real issues and scream and be loud and do whatever I wanted to. So when that disbanded, I was like, you know what? Let me start writing music on my own. And I wasn't comfortable going under my own name. I just felt that was more reserved for like pop stars and people like that. So I was like, okay, cool. Um, Let me come up with a band name. And my brother, who was the drummer in my last band, still drums for me live. When we were on tour with Red Jumpsuit, their drummer drummed for us live. So I have a lot of really good friends. Pretty much everyone you see in the music videos are the people that I take on tour.
Right.
It's just they have other things going on to commit to the financial responsibility of a band. But the band name, and I know I'm kind of just taking this and rolling with it. The band name came from a few things. So before I even named the project, before I even decided to record, a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, I want to be a producer. Let me record you do something." So we recorded a song. It was never released, but technically, I guess it's the first song I recorded under this project that will never be released. But we were in the studio, and I was like, okay, this project has to mean something. I used to work with kids and bullying and suicide prevention. What am I going to call it? And the thought in my mind came, wildfires, because someone who's struggling with anxiety or depression, the smallest thing can spark a fire in their mind. So that was the original thing. I was like, all right, let me go under wildfires. Looked it up, and I was like, oh, there's a smaller band that has that name already. I don't want to be that jerk and like, it's mine now, and I'm going to be bigger. So I didn't want to do that. So I was like, okay, cool. What can I play with? Maybe like Project Wildfires, something like that. Next thing I came up with was a nonprofit for wildfire prevention. I was like, okay, I can't do that. And then I couldn't get all the tags and handles that I wanted to all be the same. So that's why I changed the C in Project to a K, kind of like Linkin Park. And here we are today. It was a long mental journey to get here. But yeah, so that's who I am in the very longest way possible.
I mean, we were going to ask your origin story, so you kind of just covered it.
I figured that we were going to lead there. So that is the origin story of how it came to be.
So, if you had to describe your music to a random grandma on the street, how would you
Yes.
describe your music?
Well, if it was a random grandma, if I wanted to lure her into it, I would probably say Elvis, because we all know she's digging some Elvis, but that's not what we sound like at all. I think I've kind of toyed with that a little bit, because there are songs that are straight pop punk. There are songs that I released a couple years back that are super, super heavy and, alternative and have some new metal stuff, and mixing everything together. I was like, okay, we're kind of in a place like Issues, Beautiful Oblivion, where there's like really pop catchy stuff, but there's also screaming and breakdowns and things like that. So I would say the best overarching term would be heavy pop. I saw that and I was like, that's totally it. A Day to Remember once said they're the heaviest pop band. There's another band out that kind of goes with that. So I like to put like heavy pop, post hardcore. Kind of it brings everything in, while still keeping things open for me to experiment.
Yeah. Well, speaking of different types of songs, if you had to pick two songs to introduce someone to your music, what songs would you pick?
First song would be A Letter to Myself, which is I'll get to that story in a moment. So A Letter to Myself, I think, is the pure roots of everything I wanted to express. It was off the first record I did, which I only have 2 of those songs up now. Because I know I should leave all of them up, but as an artist, I was like, I don't like how the rest of these songs came out. I'm just going to take them down so no one hears them. But then I get people. I went to a show once, and someone was like, "Hey, are you going to play this song?" And I was like, "No, I also took it off Spotify. Sorry." So I should probably put that back. But so Letter to Myself is definitely like the prime one. And if I had to go with another one that kind of shows diversity, I would personally choose, oh God. In the Calm. It's a song that it wasn't a song I decided to push as a single off the EP. Lost in Searching, that was the last EP we came out with, but I wish I did. And the reason is because when we were on tour, every band that we were on tour with was just singing it constantly because it was stuck in their head.
Hmm.
And it became like the song we should closed every show with. So it never got that true love it deserved to like outside of venues. But I think if people listen to that song, those two together kind of just bring everything together. So those two.
All right. Those are
Yep.
good songs.
Thank you. A lot of
So
people
you're
like Headlights. That's one that people pinpoint to a lot, which I agree. It's a great song, but I've always had this weird. It's probably one of the best songs ever released. And when I pushed it, it did really well. But I always have this thought in the back of my head, like, well, it starts off like the first 10 seconds slow and people's attention spans are much shorter now. Like, is that going to grasp them as like the single? Like Adele can do it, yeah, and Ariana Grande can do it, and whoever, but is that going to latch people in right away for the genre that I'm putting my foot in? And I guess it does. And it's just a mental block I need to get over
Yeah.
that I'm realizing
Speaking
now on this podcast.
speaking of speaking of attention span, I'm I'm wondering now, as you're posting to social media,
Mhm.
do you notice that certain songs catch people attention better, or like certain parts of a song will catch attention better
You
that
know,
maybe you reuse more often?
that's something I've been toying with. In a lot of ways that I've actually been able to figure some of those things out because so if I post directly to my Instagram, that's pretty much my market. Who's following me? Obviously, we'll get outside of that, but I'm essentially testing to a focus group that's just people who already like what I'm doing. So every now and then I will run small ads across Instagram trying different songs, different parts of songs, different visuals. And then what I can kind of collect that data, you can tell I have a degree in marketing. I collect that and I'm like, okay, this is what is making sense. Like one thing I never knew when we were pushing Headlights, for whatever reason, the demographic that kept responding the most was when it was pushed towards fans of Machine Gun Kelly. And I was like, okay, I didn't think about that. Yeah, he just came out with a pop punk record, but it's not what the song sounds like. But I would have never known that unless I tried it. I think though what really catches people on social media the most now isn't always what the song is. It's the text that bands put over that video. Like, hey, post day one posting this song until fans of XYZ find it, or POV, you struggle with this issue, this song's for you. And I think those taglines kind of bring people in more like, okay, I'm going to listen a little harder because I deal with this problem.
Mhm.
So I think I've begun to notice that is more important even sometimes than the song.
Yeah. We need to market better for sure, right,
Yeah,
Chris?
we are not good at that at all.
Well, I've realized it's about just connecting with the person on an emotional level, and then and I've noticed with me personally, I've seen bands that I will listen to the record and I don't like it, but I'll go and see them because they're opening for a band I like, and I'll learn their personality and I'll feel like I'm part of their family, and all of a sudden I love that band. It's happened on so many occasions, so I've kind of even personally learned if I can connect with someone emotionally, I always stand at the merch table. I'm always outside of my own concerts. I will hand out cards for my band for people who don't know who we are,
Hmm.
just to be as personable as possible because I want to build those relationships. And I know as a fan, I appreciate those relationships. I mean, I get excited even when I did a cover of Ocean Avenue and the guitarist commented on it, released the full version. I was like, oh my God,
Right?
he wrote it and he wants my version. And I'm like, if that works for me, and great.
That's kind of like me, Chris, right? I love Guar live, but
Do you really?
I just can't listen to their music not live.
A weird one for me, and it's definitely an unpopular opinion. Outside of Welcome Home, I just can't listen to Coheed and Cambria. And I think what it is there's something about his voice that I like more now, but when they first came out, I really wasn't into that kind of vocal sound. But I've seen them twice in concert intentionally, and I absolutely love them live, even though their songs are so long, they only play like 6. But last time I saw them was with Taking Back Sunday and The Story So Far, and it was just phenomenal.
Wow, Jess, that sounds like a bill you would hate to witness live.
What are
So
you
we
talking
did.
about? What are you talking about? I like Coheed.
So
You
we
don't
did.
like
We did
Taking
it.
Back Sunday?
No.
What are you, a
We
brand new fan?
I actually didn't like Brand New when they first started, and then they grew on me. But now a friend of mine back in the day pushed Taking Back Sunday on me, and I kind of just I wasn't feeling it, and she kind of trying to force it upon me, and I just no, I just don't like it.
there's two bands. Well, I guess one not so much, but there's a band I really, really love now, and I've loved them for the past however many years, Silverstein. But in high school, I would not listen to them because the one kid who I disliked the most always wore Silverstein shirts and talked about them. And I just really had this grudge against this kid because he was just such a jerk to me. I was like, I'm not going to listen to them because he likes them. But then, fast forward a few years, I listened and I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Why didn't I
need
listen
this
to
in my
this
life.
already?
And then I went and saw Silverstein.
Chris, you guys like Silverstein. That's like Chris's favorite band, so.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you? I saw them with August Burns Red when they did the Constellations anniversary tour. It was them and Silent Planet. I almost said Silent Hill for a second.
I think the last time I saw Silverstein was probably pre-pandemic, 2019 maybe. It's been a while.
Was it
A
with
lot of
August
bands don't
Burns
come
Red?
around
Because
here.
that's when I saw them. Oh
No.
no, it was 2018 is when I saw them.
I don't remember who they toured with that year. Hawthorne Heights.
Nice.
Yeah. But no, we did an episode a long time ago where we were just talking and we decided to give bands we didn't like before a second chance. And mine was Coheed. That was one of them. It was probably the worst episode idea I've ever had because shocker, we didn't like the band still for the most part. But yeah, I was in the same boat. So there was something about his voice that I just couldn't stand. And
Yeah.
now that he's older and has matured, the pitch on his voice has changed quite a bit. And
Well, you
it's
can see
more
that even in
tolerable.
bands like Senses Fail. I mean, you listen to the first record, the screams sound like really loud whispers. The voice is like super, super nasally, and he still sounds like him, but totally different. Which he actually has one of my favorite concert memories. I saw him at this random theater in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, because I'm from the East Coast originally. And it was pretty empty, which was weird. I don't know if maybe the promoter didn't promote it well. So we were like right up front. And I guess at the time he was really, really uncomfortable talking to the audience. And the band needed to do like their guitar changes and tunings. So he was like, he just said, I'm really awkward talking to audiences. So what I'm gonna do, and he's holding a picture of Long Island iced teas, I think. He's like, I'm just gonna open to a random page of this Bible and read it, and then we're gonna play the next song. And I was like, oh, that's the most interesting interlude I have ever seen at a concert. Drinking up there, reading the Bible, waiting for the band to tune. Cool.
I could totally see Buddy doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a
So
character.
you've released quite a bit of music. Out of all the songs you've released, or maybe let's even say some of the songs you have unreleased, as you mentioned earlier, which one has been the hardest to write?
That's a good question. So A Letter to Myself, it wasn't the hardest song to write, but it was probably one of the more stressful songs to write. And that's because I was already living in California at the time, and I flew out to New Jersey to record a 5-song EP with a producer, Rob Freeman, who I had worked with many times. He was in the band Hidden in Plain View back in the day. We were in the studio ready to record the 5 songs. One of them was that song that I first wrote and never released. And on our first day, I was like, oh my God, I have an idea for a guitar part. And I was like, and he's like, that's great. Write it for the studio tomorrow. And I was like, oh no, I don't have lyrics. I don't have anything around it. So I just remember sitting trying to find these lyrics over and over again. And it was stressful because if it did not get finished in those 5 days, We Flew Out. That song wasn't happening. And that song ultimately kicked off that first song I wrote, became the name of the album, the first music video we released, and still one of like the fan favorite songs for the band. And what I think is so good about that song is the lyrics are as honest as they can be about what I was struggling with at the time. I mean, I had OCD and anxiety so bad, like it sounds dumb, and I know how dumb it sounds, but like I couldn't exit a room unless I flipped a light switch a certain amount of times and it felt right, or something horrible would happen. So that song goes into like how I started drinking to cover that up, and I was going insane. And the song is literally a letter to myself, kind of talking about how much of a dick I am to myself because of how much I'm struggling with and how I'm coping with it. So I think that helped to make the song a fan favorite because it's just honest. I wasn't trying to write anything. It was, oh crap, I need to write lyrics for this song tomorrow. What's happening in my life? And that's what was happening in my life. The project was born from a lot of anxiety and depression. So yeah, so that was the stressful song to write. Hardest? I don't know. So maybe that. I know there's songs like that took a very long time to write, like Forget About You, the song I just released with Josh from Magnolia Park. That song went through 3 completely different rewrites while my producer was on tour. So we started in November, worked it, recorded vocals, got everything done. He went on tour and was like, hey, you know, I think this part needs to be better. Let's make the verse better. All right, we make the verse better. He comes back in December, we record the vocals again. He leaves, he goes back to Ohio. He was like, you know what? The verse is so good. The chorus needs to be better. Okay, so the chorus gets rewritten, and then I have to re-record the chorus vocals, and then he goes on tour again. So it wasn't done until like maybe beginning of February. So it took a lot longer than it should have, but I think it's worth it because it's way better than the first version of the song. So some things just take more time. And I think maybe just writing in general can sometimes be the most stressful thing because you just don't have anything. There is no guide. It's not like a math equation. You see 2 + 2, you know it's 4. It's like, I don't hear anything in my head. What am I supposed to write?
Right.
Which is weird. We're essentially all crazy as writers because we hear things and go, that sounds cool. I'm going to make that a reality.
Where would you say your inspiration comes most of the time?
Well, before I got married, it was a lot of stress and anxiety and digging up, you know, things that have happened in former relationships. And I actually joke with my wife all the time. I'm like, hey, can you like just, can you piss me off or like leave me or something and come back just because I, you know, that's what I became comfortable writing about. I became comfortable writing about bad relationships, anxiety, and all those things. So I kind of needed to break that. And I think one of the things that really broke that was a more recent song actually was Going Blind because I wanted to try something new and I really liked the game Fallout. So I wrote the song and made a video based on Fallout. And I'm actually, we're finishing up a mix probably this week for another song that's following the similar path, and it's going to be based on a video game and hopefully have an animated video with it. So that one's coming up soon, hopefully to be released in May. So we got to hurry up.
You mentioned earlier that you're an advocate for like mental health and suicide prevention. Have you had any fans reach out to you personally about a specific lyric or song?
Yes. So this actually, it is a much bigger thing than it sounds on the surface. So my former band, we were on America's Got Talent at one point, and we were picked to be on there. We didn't even audition. The producers found a music video of ours, and there's so many bad things I can say, but I won't, even though our contract expired and I can now talk about the truth. But long story short, we ended up performing a song that we didn't want to perform, that wasn't our own song, how they wanted us to perform it, and then tore us apart. And we couldn't be like, well, you guys did this, you know, we couldn't say those things. So we received a ton of hate on the internet, a lot of people that were just like, hey, you guys suck, you should kill yourselves, et cetera, et cetera. So that led into us developing a concert-based anti-bullying program that eventually got picked up, and we did over 700 events in schools in 4 years, performing concerts for the students and speaking to them about anti-bullying and suicide prevention. So in person, we got to fully experience people coming up to us and talking to us about things. I've had people email me like, hey, this song that you wrote, I was in the hospital after trying to commit suicide, and it made me decide that I want to, keep pushing through. So I do hear it, and I do talk to people about it. And weirdly enough, it's a very uncomfortable thing for me to do. Like, I have to get out of my comfort zone to actually, I'm emotional in music, but when it comes to actually saying the emotional things, it's very difficult for me. So when I do have these conversations with people, it does actually sometimes stress me out, but it's something I want to do at the same time. Because I love helping people through these situations. And I think the best part about it, I mean, other than helping to, I'm not going to say I've ever saved somebody's life. I don't think I have the power to do that, but being able to motivate people to take another step and keep walking, it's more impactful than however many streams you get on Spotify.
Right.
Those people, I mean, it's great. I'm very thankful for that, but to actually see the person you've made a connection with and realize how much of an impact you've had on them, it's a lot bigger of a deal. It means a lot more.
Yeah, I could see that. That's kind of why we
It's
did the
interesting.
podcast, because we want to, reach as many people and have
Yeah.
people like learn about new bands, because we've had a lot of newer bands on our podcast, and
Yeah.
we want to help them out. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big thing. That's one of the reasons I had started the show I was doing for a while, is because everyone always shut doors on me. So I wanted to open them for those same people.
Right.
Or not the people who shut the doors. Screw them. The people who also got doors shut on them.
It's interesting you mentioned that you are an advocate and you want to be there for other people. I'm the same way. So I've had like mental health issues for a very long time. And once I finally came to terms with it and worked through quite a bit of it, like I try and always lend an ear for someone who needs it, but I also stink at knowing what to say. Like
Yeah.
I really don't know what to say. Like I want to listen. I'm more than willing to like guide someone through like what I've gone through. And that seems to be the most help for people, is me saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I've gone through this." But if somebody's like, "Oh, and they lay everything on me, um, the only thing that ever comes to mind, and it's a funny line, and I use it all the time, sarcastically. When my wife and I originally found out we were pregnant with my older son, we were living with my father-in-law. So I'd lost my job. We moved to Florida. We were living with him. And so we tell him, and he goes, "Geez, that sucks." And so like once people kind of get to know me and they kind of lay on like a thick situation, they'll usually know the story before then, and I'll lay right into that, and it breaks that tension.
Yeah.
But you can't always do that. People who come to you aren't always somebody you're close with or someone who knows you well, but
Oh, yeah.
breaking that tension always seems to
I think the hardest
be the
thing
best way.
is when you can't fully resonate with what they're talking about. And I just kind of have to remind myself, well, I may not see what I can offer, but for whatever reason, this person wants to talk to me. Like, so when I'm not doing my own music, my, regular job is I run the audio department at a church. And a guy came up to me. He walked into the church. He was completely high on crystal meth, bawling his eyes out, felt like it was, he was at the end of his rope, and he saw me. And I'm like, I went through stuff, but I've never been like cracked out or on the streets. And he's like, "You're the person I need to talk to about this." And I'm like, okay. And at the end of the conversation, he was like, "Thanks so much for being there. Can I get your number? Can I keep in touch? And, when I have problems," I'm like, "Sure." So clearly something that I didn't see I was capable of was the right thing for that person. And I'm just glad I could help.
I feel like sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger though.
Oh yeah. I
For
don't have any
sure.
emotional conversations with my family.
Well, I would never talk to my mom about something like that.
Yeah.
She would just be like, push it out and go away.
Yeah.
She wouldn't even understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you never know who you're going to impact and how you're going to impact them.
Right. Definitely. So, your latest single,
Mm-hmm.
Forget About You, with Josh from Magnolia Park. You've collaborated a lot with a lot of different artists.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone that you'd love to collaborate with in the future that you would consider a Reach for the Stars collaboration? Like if you could just collaborate
So
with
if
anyone.
we're really reaching, so there is something coming up that I'm really, really excited about that I can't mention at all because there's still so many things to work out. It is a very large artist in our scene. That'll be for a third song coming out this year. But if I could pick anybody, it's always been Ryan Tedder from One Republic. In my opinion, he is one of just the all-time greatest writers because he has done so many things that people don't even realize. I saw him also. Silverstein did an amazing cover of Apologize on, Punk Goes Pop back in the day. I see you nodding your head.
Yeah.
But I saw them in concert, and not only was it like you were family with him, he did 10 songs in a row, like a medley of songs he wrote for other people. And you're hearing him and you're like, holy crap, this guy has the biggest repertoire of like songs he wrote. And you can, when he plays them, like he wrote Halo for Beyonce. But when he plays it, you're like, oh my God, it's totally a One Republic song. Like there's no way it's not. But he was also talking on stage. He's like, yeah, when I first started out in California, I was just in like a small little emo band covering Panic at the Disco. And I'm like, oh my God, you're like me. But I just appreciate his writing and his take on life. And when I saw them, they were supporting a nonprofit fighting child trafficking. And then I eventually went on to work with that same nonprofit. So I just think as a person and his writing, it would be a dream come true to work on something with him.
Hey, maybe they'll listen to this podcast.
I'm hoping.
I'll
Say it
tag
all
them.
the time.
I'll make a teaser reel and I'll tag them in it.
I'll take it. Please don't charge me a very large feature fee. Ryan Tedder, if you're out there, find me. Yeah.
Who would you say your biggest influences are?
So my biggest influences when I got into songwriting, you actually would not be able to hear at all. So I mean, when I was in sixth grade, these ones you can. When I was in sixth grade and I started writing lyrics, me and my friend would just take Linkin Park songs and like write our own lyrics to them. And the same with Sum 41 songs. But years later, when I actually decided to start a band, Alice in Chains was actually the band that I sat down and like studied their songs. I was in my room with a pen and paper, like, okay, they put a verse here, a chorus here, they did this weird change here. That's cool. That's cool. And it actually wasn't for a while after that until I really got into like emo music because stupid sibling thing. My brother was in high school. He brought home like Hawthorne Heights and all these records. And I'm like, oh, my brother listens to that. I don't want to listen to that. I'm only listening to 90s stuff. So I was like, I used to like make fun of it. And then I found myself one day and I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I started shifting my writing. But I'd say now what influences me the most is I like to take as many cues as possible, mixing the true sound of our genre and the major bands in our genre, but also listening to completely different things. Um, like pop, for example, when we did the Lost and Searching record, there's a lot of heavy parts on that, but at the same time, me and my producer also referenced Justin Bieber songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just every genre has something to offer. So I like to start with where I'm at. And then it's usually my producer who pushes me to listen to the other things. I'm like, hey, he's right. He'll send me a song. He's like, listen to this, write a beat like this. I'm like, all right, you were right last time. We'll be right this time.
I mean, you are paying your producer
And that
to
is
help you out.
something that I think a lot of younger artists or very controlling artists get caught up on. And I know I was that way when I was very, very young. It's like, yeah, you pay the producer, but this is my song. I know what's best for it.
Right.
Eventually you get over that hump and you're like, yeah, I wrote it, but I don't know what's best for it. I'm paying this guy to do what he does best. I'm going to listen to him. I might not like the idea, but what am I paying him for? And
Right.
generally it's the right choice. Yeah, it's simple as that. Listen to your producer. If you're paying someone, listen to them.
Right.
Because I know I also get mad, like even working in just live audio, someone's like, hey, I trust you to do this job, but then you don't let me actually do what I know what I needs to be done. It's like, well, why'd you hire me in the first place?
Right.
Either you trust what I'm doing or you don't trust what I'm doing. And obviously there's a give and take. You obviously, if the artist wants something, you give it to them. But at the same time, you're like, you're paying me to do this. I want to give you the best product. And I think this is where we need to put it. But if you want it over here, we'll put it over here.
Yeah.
Because I know there's plenty of things in my own songs that I have just like, someone's mentioning an idea. I'm like, that's the worst idea. Let's not do it. And then like a year later, I'll be like, what would sound really good in this part? That thing that I hated would sound amazing right now. And so from that moment, I remember there's like a distinct song prior to the Wildfires project that happened on. And since then, I'm like, I'm just going to listen. Like if it's really bad, I won't, but they know what they're doing.
Right.
That's like a general issue with any employer almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're paying your employee, but you're not going to trust them.
Yep. I know that.
So here's a little bit of a random question. So I'm going to preface this with Johnny Depp says he got his inspiration for Jack Sparrow from Keith Richards.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any inspiration for your stage presence?
So it's actually really funny that you bring that one up. Because when I first started performing on stage and I was doing more covers than originals, it was actually Mick Jagger was one of the people that I would emulate, and I would do all the really weird things that looked like he was having a seizure or whatever. And I think what that was good for is I went 0 to 100 really quick on stage presence, like from doing nothing to looking like I'm probably dying on stage. So that was a huge influence. And actually my mom, not by like watching her do it, but by her coaching us when I was like 15, 16, 17, she would film our performances and be like, hey, do you think you did good? Did you think you moved a lot on stage? I'm like, yeah, I think it was great. And, I think I moved around. And she'd be like, you didn't do any of that. And she'd play the tape back and be like, look, you're standing still the whole time. And so we would go through different things. We'd be in the bathroom. She'd be like, stop it. You're standing still. Move. So I think with her kind of, shaping me into place and looking at these different people, and that was a huge help. Yeah, definitely. So thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
It's interesting. I think that would probably be the last place I would expect to hear a stage presence influence come from.
Yep. It is a unique one, but it is a very unique combination. Kid who plays emo music, inspired by Mick Jagger and his mother beating videos into his head of him not performing well.
Hey, she just wanted you to be the best you could be.
You know what? All those awkward performing in the garage and going over things and stuff, it worked. What can I say?
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks,
That's what
Mom.
you can say. You mentioned your Sounds of the Underground TV series earlier. There hasn't been any activity on social media that I could tell since like 2023.
Yes. So after the last run, I realized that, so most people don't know this, but that entire production from network relations, marketing, sponsorships, setting up, live audio, mixed audio. Everything is me except for the actual videography, editing, and taping. So there's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of upfront costs that I have to try to recuperate. It's not like a for-profit thing. It's let's do this to help artists. So I noticed that pressure on me started taking a lot away from my own music and writing. So there's like a gap between Lost and Searching and when we released Going Blind, because my mind and my time was so consumed in that I kind of lost sight of my own music. So I knew I had to take a break, and I've actually been toying around with bringing it back and how to bring it back and what's the best method for that. But at this moment, I personally need to focus on getting my own music back to where it was, but it's also not out of the question. Really, I just need a lot more help, and when it's not a for-profit thing, that's hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if someone wants to come in and be like, yo, we'll give you all this money, you keep this much and produce the show with the rest, absolutely. I'll take it. If you know, Netflix was like, we want to buy this from you, absolutely. But for now, I just need to focus on other things and kind of come back to it. But it is something I enjoy and really enjoy doing when I don't feel like I'm going to throw up throughout the process. It takes like 6 months of work to pull off those 5 episodes every run.
Right.
So it's a lot. But
it is. Even a podcast is a lot, right, Chris?
Yep.
Got to help a lot of bands, meet a lot of cool people. I mean, the only thing that led to me being on the road with the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus was that show.
Yeah.
The first season, Ronnie performed A Letter to Myself on stage with us. I want to say that recording is on Spotify, but it might not be, because I remember wanting to change the artwork. And also I wanted to like mix it a little better now and kind of get it into like a studio and live kind of mix. But we'd performed together, and he called me up 2 weeks later and was like, hey, you want to do a record? So the next record we did, he produced, him and my current producer, John Espy, who plays drums in the band. We did that record together. If you listen, there's certain parts you can hear him doing the harmonies on the songs because they're really high. And I could not sing them. But so that show, you know, it gave a lot to me. It gave a lot to other people. So I'm really happy to have done it. And it's not out of the question I will do it again.
Well, something the fans of it have to look forward to, hopefully. In the future, you'll bring it back. Maybe.
Yes. Maybe in the future, yes.
So on social media, you're always putting out really great content. Where do you come up with your ideas for your content?
So, I mean, it's a mix. I think so. It varies. There are. I hear my dog. Hold on. Let me get him. Come on in, buddy. You don't want to be alone? All right.
That's okay. We love dogs.
Here's this loaf. This is Atlas. He's new in the house. But
hi, Atlas.
He doesn't.
He's like, what in the world?
He's a very needy boy. Here, you can just lay in the corner. Okay, what was the question again?
Where do you come up with your ideas for your content?
So there are some ideas that obviously you see someone do something similar on the internet and you're like, oh wow, I can make that apply to me. So like I just did that Love is Blind video. I saw someone else posted a video like ultimate Disney adult on Love is Blind. And I was like, wow, that's a really cool idea. What about if an emo person was on? Because they never have those people. All these shows are the jack tan dudes with their shirts ripped off. And I'm like, what would it look like if an emo person was on? So there's a lot of ideas like that. And then there's some that just pop into my head when I'm at work and I'm like, oh, I got to get home so I can film this. But I kind of like to mix what I see because obviously that's doing well. It's the same with writing music. If every band writes verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, because it works. so I kind of did the same with the videos. I took inspiration from others, but also came up with my own ideas. And if it's ever a couples video, it's always my wife. She'll be like, "Hey, we should do this," and I'm like, "All right." Usually, it involves me getting hurt in some way. Like there was some trend with pretending to crack an egg on your husband's head or something, so I just got hit with an egg because it didn't crack.
Did she hard boil it first?
No, but the thing was just she hit me hard and it did not crack. So it's kind of like a mix of things, and it's kind of, I think TikTok culture has really put a focus on a lot of people just copying the same thing over and over again.
Right.
So I think there's a little bit that has to be done because you have to understand where the world is. That's why a lot of bands don't release full lengths anymore. But also you kind of have to be original and do your own thing as well.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to ask something. We were talking about like the Love is Blind.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, my husband and I randomly watched like Farmer Wants a Wife. Why can't there be like an emo wants a wife?
I always joke around too with my wife, like, you know what? We should both apply for Love is Blind and just like play it out and end up with each other at the end and just see what's going on this thing. Like plot twist, they're already married.
They probably check into that, I think.
Or like I thought one idea I think would be really, really funny is if they did a season of The Bachelor and all these girls go through the challenge. They're at the end. It's the two girls. And then it's like, sorry, guys, he's actually gay. And just like really messing with people. Cause I know there was that show, Joe Millionaire, back in the day where they told all these girls this guy had $1 million and they were so in love with him. And then they win and he doesn't actually have $1 million. He's just a regular guy.
Well, wasn't there like two guys on that show? One of them was a millionaire and one wasn't.
Yep, there was another one that was like that too, but yeah, I get looped into the trash TV sometimes. I don't want
then there's
to.
that classic Rock of Love back in the day.
Oh my gosh. Usually it's when I was living at home, it was I'd walk through to the kitchen and my mom was watching The Bachelor and I'd be like, "Oh, this is a train wreck," and just like sit down to eat and then get sucked in. Now it's the same thing but with my wife turning on, like, now we're watching Jane the Virgin. We're 4 seasons into it. She started on her own. I sat down and I was like, "Hey, what's going on this show? It's pretty funny." And now
I love that show. It's a great show.
It's a great show. Although I don't like that they killed off Michael officially. That just happened.
Yeah, I've gone through the whole thing, so no spoilers because I've seen it all.
Yeah, it's like if you haven't seen it, it's older.
It is an older show, so who cares? Yes. Whatever. If you get spoiled, oh well.
Supernatural is my favorite show. Me and my dad and my brother, we just always watch that together. I'm done with that. Like if we finally finished it, when we all moved into different homes, it became very difficult to get together and watch the show.
I think I watch way too much TV. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a YouTube junkie, but now my head is playing around with like emo love TV shows. It could be like emo hearts, but a throwback to MySpace and HTML coding. It'd be emo and heart semicolon.
That'd be funny. You can really roll off that idea because like just say it's a set, like kind of set up like The Bachelor. Look at us. We're writing a show that someone's going to steal. The Bachelor is, one guy or woman and then 30 men or women on it. What if like that was that kind of show setup? And then when it got down to less people, it was like, all right, pick your top 8. And then you had your top 8. And then it was like your friends on MySpace. And then you had this, the songs connected to people and the stupid signs people used to hold up. That's like, this person owns this picture. Like you can put all that stuff into a TV show. And like you said, with the coding, everybody had their MySpace, some weird look to it that they designed. It's a great time. Great time.
I think this is our ticket, y'all. This is
our ticket to fame.
That's
New
it,
show.
Guys.
Sounds
the 3 of us
was a thing. Now
the 3 of us, we're gonna turn like some show into an emo love show.
Yes. Sad for love.
So the last planned question I have is a little bit of a strange one. If your music was an energy drink, which would it be?
Unless you don't drink energy drinks.
Oh no, I do. I'm a big fan of Celsius. Celsius and Nos are my two favorites. I'm gonna go with Celsius for one. I think Celsius should be the answer. And the reason I think, and I'm going to go really into it with this one. So it gives a lot of the music gives you a boost. It's very energetic. It's lively, but there's nothing in my music that really makes you crash like a normal energy drink will. But I also think the content of our music has a lot of very helpful things like the sustainable ingredients in Celsius. So I'm going to land on Celsius. We'll lift you up, we'll cool you out, we'll help you, but we're not going to make you crash and burn. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have emotions together. Yeah, we'll get sad, but I'm not going to leave you in a pit.
That's it. Your new Celsius sponsor.
They may or may not have at one point given us some cans for the road. But that's actually when I started liking Celsius. I never drank it before, and they're like, hey, take some on the road with you. And I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. We would drink like 3 a day and never crash or get the jitters. And everyone in the band was like, we like Celsius now. This is our new product.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to cut caffeine out.
Yeah, I tried that too.
What did I used to drink? I forget.
I'm 10 days into cutting out caffeine. So
wow.
Yeah, it's actually severely, so I've always had like a hard time falling asleep. And like all the way back in like high school, I'm like, I didn't used to drink caffeine then. I'm like, oh, but I drink a crap ton of soda. So yeah, I did. And like for the
a
last
bottle of Coke as much caffeine as a thing of coffee.
Yeah. So it's like now for the last week, no problem falling asleep. So
yeah,
maybe I've been doing it to myself all those years.
I've been pulling back on caffeine for sure, and I've noticed I feel a lot better. Oh my God, this dog just keeps biting my hands. This reminds me, I did an interview with Stand Atlantic, and her cat, Bonnie's cat, just jumped on her back and clawed it, and she just screamed at the top of her lungs.
Atlas just wants to be in the interview.
He just wants to be a star. He is the most malleable dog. Like, you can literally hold him however you want, and he just chills. Like, he'll get into bed and he'll like cuddle up to you and hold you like a human holds you. And you could just, if you want to flip over, you just grab him and flip him, and he's just the same spot as he was. He just needs to learn to come in when I call him from the outside.
Chris, I was gonna say, how's Millie? Is she malleable?
No, she's rigid, and I don't even know where she is right now. She went to doggy daycare yesterday, and she's been pooped all day. Like, it took a lot of effort for me to even get her to convince her to go outside today. Just insane.
What kind of dog?
She's primarily Belgian Malinois.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's a handful. So how was that conversation you had with Stand Atlantic?
It was good. It was fun because it was like the first kind of over cross seas thing. So we had to like really sync up the timelines. I'd say one of the best interviews I ever got to do was with Ronnie from the Red. Oh my God. Let me get him out of here now. You're going out. Be free.
Be free. Bye, Atlas.
He can be a handful. He's still a puppy for sure. They lied to us when they said he was only 2 years old. He's not. He's not even a year. And now I'm covered in fur. But anyway, I think one of the best interviews that I ever had was on the first season with Ronnie of the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. And the conversations we had, I wish all of our off-camera conversations were also filmed, but they just took this really like personal, deep approach. And he is a very very Christian, sounds weird. He's Christian, has a lot of faith and things like that. And he was talking from like experience of things that had happened in his life and how he went from here to here. And I was like, wow, I never expected like this much depth and just an open book from someone. And he was like super honest. He's like, hey, yeah, I know I was a dick back in the day when we first started. Any questions, just ask me about it. I was like, oh, well then. But no, it was a really cool interview, and there have been some fun ones for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had some fun ones, right, Chris?
Yeah, we've had some interesting ones. I tried to reach out to Stand Atlantic. I'm pretty sure that's the one where I was typing the message and I hit send prematurely. It was like
I
half
hate
a
that.
message, and it was in the section where it's like invite to chat. So I can't follow up with the rest of the message, and I can't delete what I sent. I'm like, damn.
I
The
can try.
best.
Maybe I'll send one on my JAMXP Jess one. There you go.
There you go.
I would just say go and email the management of these
Yeah.
people. They're pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
We always
I
try to
may
reach out
have.
on Instagram, but then we know certain bands you definitely have to go through the right channels.
Oh yeah. And that was the same when I was doing the show. Like some bands you get hit up online super easily, even big bands. But then there's certain bands like Simple Plan. Well,
Right.
I don't think they're gonna see my message on Instagram in front of all these people.
Well, no, they have like 6.8 million followers.
Yeah, so but they were great guys. I can't there's only ever one band that I've really felt. There are bands that I may not have like agreed with certain things with, but I understand it's art and art should be expressed. And I'm not going to choke anybody of that. But there was one band that I just got a really off feeling about the whole time we were with them. And then they were talking about things, and I was like, I don't really think they embody what we're trying to do with the show. So there's only ever been one band that it's been like, sorry, we're not going to air this segment.
Right.
And that was a hard decision to make. But sometimes when there's something in your gut that's just telling you you shouldn't do this, you kind of have to follow through with it.
Right.
And sadly, in any business, sometimes you are going to make enemies. I don't think I'm enemies with any of these people, but I would work with them in other capacities. It just didn't match what I was trying to do at the time.
Right.
So yeah, definitely some interesting interviews. Luckily, only one that didn't go too well. But you live and you learn, and you kind of, that's when you research people a little more.
Right. Well, Chris, anything else you'd like to ask?
No, but we're talking about like Stan Atlantic and like all these other bands that you mentioned throughout this episode, and so many of them are going on tour together this summer. On the summer school tour. I don't know if you saw that lineup.
Yep.
Like, dang, and the closest they're coming is Philly to me, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah,
it's 4.5 hours.
I'm in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I'm in upstate New York.
Are you by the Cheese Castle?
Me, I'm not that far, but I'm not by the Cheese Castle, no.
Good old Cheese Castle. It's a great place. Filled with wine and cheese and meat, shaped like a castle.
I mean, it is Wisconsin, so.
Yeah. We're in upstate New York.
Syracuse.
Nice. I'm originally from Jersey, so I've been there plenty. But
he says nice, Chris, but you never say nice. He doesn't
never will.
You know, I miss the Northeast. It's completely different than California. I like California. It's just a different culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm in Wisconsin.
Good old Wisconsin.
And it's snowing right now again.
I learned how to breathe fire in Wisconsin very like slightly. That was fun. If you put cornstarch in your mouth before it fully gets wet, like put the cornstarch in, light something and breathe, and it lights on fire and shoots out. You can also take a water bottle that's empty, shake a little gas in there, dump it out, light the tip, and smash it, and it'll flamethrower out. So if any children are watching this, don't try this at home.
Chris will just flag this as not appropriate for children.
I flag every episode that way. You don't have that option on YouTube when you upload. It's either intended for children or not intended for children.
Yep. which I'm always kind of like, when I upload things, I'm like, well, it's not intended for children, but it's not bad for children.
Right. That's the struggle I go through. Like every time I'm uploading, like, is it going to do any harm to these kids? Except for the one episode. But like I just
Yeah.
We can talk more about that when we're
Yeah.
not recording.
When you have
Yeah.
the wiggles on.
Well, we'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. And hopefully I've said something that works in your podcast edit that sounds good.
Sometimes Chris probably won't edit too much of this. We'll just leave all the stuff with Atlas in it and everything.
Hey, as long as it's entertaining to watch, I don't care what happens.
Hey, I found it entertaining, so other people have to, right?
I also found it entertaining, so I'd like to think they would too.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And
anything you want to say before we cut the feed?
Well,